Show, GA. Delighted to be back talking through another weekend of GA action. Joined once again by Dick Clerkin, and we have, well, it's a new voice, but it's definitely a voice we've heard before. He has 8 All-Irelands, 9 All-Stars, but he's probably even better known by some people for phrases such as puke football, Shiite football. I'd swipe left if I was, judging modern football. It's something he said a couple of years ago. Pat Spillane, great to have you on board.
Good on the research, but it was swipe right with Ulster football, Michael. But two out of three backs right, not bad, Michael, not bad.
Swipe right to Ulster football, by God.
Yes, correct. You see, you need to sack your researcher, Michael. That's that.
He's too busy swiping left. That's right. The problem.
Lads,
he only knows one way.
I haven't swiped in a long time, thankfully. Good to have you both on board, lads. Pat, I suppose the best place to start would be Saturday evening down in Tralee. Dublin's first league win down in Tralee in Austin Stack Park, I think since 1982. A game you probably played, actually, I'd imagine.
Didn't really play winter football.
Good man.
And in 1982, I tell you exactly where I was when they were playing. I was getting operated on my cruciate ligament in Cambridge in 1982. And thanks to Offaly, do you know what? If we had won that 5 in a row, I would have retired. A lot of us would have retired. And losing to Offaly, I sort of said, right, I'm going to get my cruciate done. I want to come back playing football again, and I want to end on the right note. And I was getting operated in Cambridge.
Oh, very good. Okay, very good. I know she didn't let Seamus Darby get a word in on the Late Late Show a couple of weeks ago either.
Oh, yeah, obviously, jeez, no, good guy.
The best of men.
No, Saturday night, Michael, was a very enjoyable game. Great contest, great entertainment. There's something about Saturday night live games under lights, a packed Austin Stack Park. I've said that before. We should be doing more of these Saturday night games, even Friday night games involving neighbouring counties. Promote them, market them. Great atmosphere, great game. Everything resulted out up to the final whistle. Kerry, much improved performance from the previous week against Donegal, where they were very flat and lethargic. Played some lovely football in that first half. Dominated midfield, Joe O'Connor and Diarmid. I thought their use of the kick passing and the long ball, very, very good. The forwards looked good. Left, an 11-point lead didn't flatter them. Probably left 2, perhaps even 3 goals behind. Did I see the second half coming that came? No, I didn't. But, you look at it, I look at it, why Dublin won. And, when you look at it over the 70 minutes, Dublin played the game last Saturday night on their terms. In the first half, they kept possession. It was a 70% possession in that first half. Kept possession, played it outside, Kerry stuck in a low block, never engaged for long spells. That was number one. So the first half, that they set the terms. In the second half, they played the game on their terms again. They attacked midfield. They attacked the kick out. They attacked Kerry. They ran at Kerry. And again, sadly, like from a Kerry point of view, this is a story of this particular bunch of Kerry, of very talented Kerry players, of big matches, of matches where they should be winning, where they're in control and they lose control. And again, whether it is last year against Armagh, the year before in the All-Ireland final against Dublin, cruising last quarter, game management, lack of composure, lack of leadership. Now, it was a bad defeat. Like I said, it's the same failings again. But look, all is not lost. Like Kerry people do highs and lows. Like we were on a high after Derry, despite the fact scoring 3 goals in the last couple of minutes. Look, we didn't really look into the fact that Derry's defending was a bit lackadaisical. We were very low after a very poor performance against Donegal. Now Kerry supporters in the doldrums again. Look, All-Irelands aren't handed out in February. We only lost by a point last Saturday night. We only lost by 2 points to an almost full-strength Donegal team, but there's a lot of worries for Kerry. They're having to settle 15. They're struggling at midfield to get a partner for Diarmid O'Connor. So a lot of work needs to be done because, like I said, Saturday night in that last 15 minutes, I saw same old failings and just struggling in the clutch moments.
Just from that point of view, Pat, to lose a lead like you did the other night, like it's kind of unforgivable, really, isn't it?
It is. But like I said, it's not the first time. I mean, you take Armagh last week. We were cruising, or last year, we were cruising against Armagh. Shane Ryan mistake. And then once the opposition get momentum on Kerry just can't seem to close out the game. Their game management is very poor. I mean, what was the tally last week? 2 points on play in the second half. Knocked out of it midfield. Dublin, like, one of the things that surprised me a lot about was fitness-wise, and not for the first time, fitness-wise, we struggled. Dublin were physically stronger. They were fitter than us, and they were winning the breaking ball. It was a disappointing last 20 minutes. There's a lot of work to be done.
Dick, from a Dublin point of view, I suppose rumours of their demise have been grossly exaggerated when you can win a game like that coming from behind with so many rookie players and minus so many big players. Fair enough, a lot of the big players aren't going to be back, but like, there were so many kind of new faces and inexperienced faces on show the other night that really stood up for the Dubs, Dick.
Yeah, they have, but listen, at the same time, they still have a sprinkling of class and quality there. The likes of Kilkenny, you had Howard, very influential. Davy Byrne is back, and really Sean Bugler, like, he's sort of really stepping up as a real leader for that Dublin team, and maybe in the absence of Brian Fenton, he sort of sees, well, he's going to be that sort of pivotal link player, driving from the middle, kicking scores from distance. So, like, when you've got 4 or 5 really solid, good players that have the ability, the leadership, and as Pat touched, the fitness and the athleticism, you can bring an awful lot of what might be otherwise average players with you, and that's what you're sort of seeing with this Dublin team. They've got still a core of really good quality, and once they're fit and hungry, which there's no sign to think, they'll always compete. Now, they're just not that far ahead that they can't, in terms of their starting 15 or the starting 20 in quality, that they can just turn up like they did there for about 10 years and they'll just win games at the canter, or they'll win games in the last 10-15 minutes. They have to be going at the intensity and the pace that we seen on Saturday night. If they drop a wee bit, they'll lose games. They'd have lost that game, even with a sort of an average Kerry performance over. They'd have lost that game at the death if they didn't put in the effort that they did. So they're not going to be far away. They're not going to fall back. They're not like other counties that don't have the depth. And if a few star players step away, they'll struggle to compete. Dublin are going to be in the top 4 or 5 for the next 10 years. There's no reason or logic to think. It's just that they now have to. They know themselves. They have to be turning up every night to get a result. And that's what you want in any team.
Pat, the other night, Saturday night, well, the 2 games on Saturday night and even a couple on Sunday, were like the old adage of a game at 2 halves is coming back into vogue so prominently now. Derry were down a big margin, should have won the game. Dublin were down a big margin, did win the game. Roscommon were down 4, won by 5. Particularly with the new rules, Pat, and with a breeze and being able to shoot from outside that 2-point arc. No lead is really safe. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 points not even safe in the new rules.
No, like I said, a 10-point lead is 5 scores now, 5 2-pointers, and with a strong wind, and with the quality of the players playing inter-county football, a 40-metre point is a gimme. It's well within the ranges. So there's a couple of things. Yes, there's no doubt about it now. Wind is going to play a huge factor. That's number 1. Number 2, the 2-pointers are going to be a major factor. And number 3, the kickouts are a huge, huge factor. Because if you can get your kickouts away, if you can win your kickouts, you have momentum when you're going. And the one common denominator last week with the 2 games you mentioned, the 2 Division 1 games on Saturday night, is that in the first half, Galway and Derry. Galway dominated midfield. In the second half, Conor Glass took over. They had momentum. They brought on Lachlan Murray and a few subs and away they get. And it was the same with Dublin. Dublin went at Kerry's kick out. Now, this is one of the criticisms of Kerry. And people will that Shane Ryan continued for almost the entire night, I think bar one occasion, kicking it out to the where the dugouts were, and they lost every single one of them. Now, great players and great teams are teams who can read and adapt to situation. And while you can blame management for not changing, players must take responsibility. They know they were losing it, and that's it. They should have been changing the kick out. They should have been looking for short kick outs or going to the other direction. And once you get momentum midfield, once you get on top midfield, whether it was with Conor Glass or whether it was last week with Kieran Kilkenny and Brian Howard around the middle, the momentum is there, and it's very hard to stop a team under these new rules with that wind and with those 2-point shooting and dominating the kickouts.
Dick, just on something Pat said there, obviously you're still going to need players and energizer bunnies to get up and down the pitch, especially because it's probably more attritional now. But is there more of an onus or an emphasis from management now where you're going to be picking the lad that can kick the ball now, picking the lad that, you know, you have an option of this lad is able to, we 4, 5, 6 lads that can shoot from outside the 2-point arc, as opposed to lads just carrying the ball into that area and hand passing it off? Or are we putting more in, will the rules hopefully put more of an emphasis on the skills of the game, and particularly obviously the foot pass and kicking long distance scores?
Yeah, there is that, but taking on Pat's point, before you get, like, one of the best starting positions for an attack that gives you the option to kick or whatever is getting that primary position in the middle third. So getting the ball in that area. So we've seen now the new rules that, you know, you have the opportunity to win it in the middle of the pitch, and the minute you get it, you look up, you have space. You didn't have that there for a long time because of so many short kickouts. By the time you got the ball out there, when you looked up, you've seen bodies. Whereas now, so before you can think about having players that can kick it, you need players that can win the ball. And there's 2 ways of doing it. It's very simple, as it was for 100 plus years when I played the game from large part, and Pat did. High fielders and boys can get in and get breaking ball. And I've noticed just watching games, you can see even teams, there's new midfielders or midfielders who are relatively new to the game. Like, they've largely played inter-county football not having to compete for balls. This is the first year that they've had to maybe jump and field for maybe 10, 12, maybe 20 kickouts. In other games, they might have to do it once or twice. That's a skill that players and midfielders are now going to have to learn. They're going to learn how to time their jump. They're going to have to learn how to position themselves. They're going to learn how to not jump 2 and 3 bodies together. You see, I see it all the time watching players, and then the players around them, breaking ball, a skill that, you know, I would have always thought I was quite strong on, the likes of Paul Galvin and different players going back. It's getting breaking ball and being brave and timing yourself to get. That's a skill a lot of teams are going to have to learn now, because if you can be really good at that, well, that then sets you up in really, really strong attacking positions to exploit.
That's a fair point by Dick, because there's the new rules have seen the re-emergence and the need for 3 specialist players. A goalkeeper who has a good kick out, but more importantly, a goalkeeper who's comfortable out the field and can kick long range points. So that's a new type of player. The second player that has made a re-emergence is the big, tall, 6'2", 6'3", ball winner at midfield who can win primary possession. And the third type of player who has re-emerged is the Paul Galvin type player, the dog, the fella who will get down, who has the bravery for the dirty ball, because there's a lot of breaking ball. It's one of the unintended consequences of the new rules, probably, and a great thing. Under the old rules, it was so choreographed, it was so slow, it was so much sticking to the process. It's about recycling, slow build-up, that at least the one thing the long kick out has brought in is chaos. And that's something that the modern day coach is struggling at the moment to handle, because they're used to everything being choreographed. So they're the great thing. So there's 3 types of players. Okay, let's not forget, however, that there's very little coaching have been done. There's only 3 matches in the space of 4 weeks. So have we seen coaching, and have we seen coaches taking advantage of the new rules yet? We haven't really. And probably one of the reasons, A, they haven't enough time, but B, the weather conditions have been atrocious, which means that we're not seeing as much kick passing as we should. We're certainly not seeing, we're seeing very little of the advanced mark. The third thing, what I do note, is that you can beat coaches, because coaches are very good, not at being innovative and being creative, but they're very good at being negative. But I did detect last week now, for the first time, that at centre field with the long kickouts, the dark arts around the middle of the field have re-emerged, and there's certainly an element of blocking runners, of stopping the midfielder, the good midfielder, from jumping. That was starting last week. Expect more of that.
Dick, would
Jesus,
you know much about that? Yeah.
I could get a job. I could get a job back coaching. But yeah, why wouldn't you? But that's how it was played. There's no point in saying otherwise. There was a need for that. You had to know how to sort of limit the influence of big tower midfielders. The guy played all of my career. I was always the smallest midfielder. I was just short of 6'1". You were always playing against guys 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". You had no choice but to try and find ways to limit their influence. And you're seeing that now. And you're going to see, well, I don't see that's dark arts. I see that's gamesmanship. You see that in every type of game. You try and, look at the strengths of other players and try and limit them. I used to always say, get the ball to the ground, I win it there. I might know to get it up high. So you're going to see that now. But equally on your point, Pat, like you were in Roscommon. An example of a player or a type of player, Pat, that you were saying that's now of more value. Young Micheál McCarville, actually Jerry McCarville's son. Remember Jerry?
Yeah, I know.
Back then. So Micheál McCarville, he was in the panel a couple of years from Scotland. Awful good lad, but would have been struggling to make an impact up until this year. Just the way the game was, it wasn't suiting him. Now, for the last 3 games, he's up catching ball. He's a real asset, and you can see the confidence in. And that's just down to the new rules because he can play that game. He can get up and catch. He's 6'4", good pair of hands, and he's an asset. And you're going to see players and counties now looking for that traditional far larger in the middle because that is now an asset that every team's going to have.
Actually, we're not forgetting 2 other types of players who have now thrived under the new rules, and that's the small, skillful, pacey corner forward, particularly the guy who is not keen on tracking back or whatever. The guy who now has the space in front of him, makes the run, gets the ball in that space and takes the man on. And I looked at Chris Oak-Jones of Cork, for example. Like he scored 3-4 last week against Westmeath. And he's been thriving under the new rules because he has the space, he's getting the quick ball and he's going. And the other fella who became an extinct species like the dodo was the sticky cornerback. Because under the blanket defence, you didn't need a man marking good defensive. Now they're required. And I know with Kerry, we're struggling in that department because with the exception of the young lad Damien Burke, we don't have traditional man-marking defenders. We have attacking, pacey sort of wing-backs. So the man-marking, tight-marking defender that was stuck in your togs for the whole game and growling down your back of your neck, he's making a return as well.
Oh, great to see it.
I noticed that down in Killarney at the Donegal match, Pat. Like the defending, the close quarter defending of the Kerry defenders was really pitiful. Like the Donegal players were just skipping by them. So that's definitely an area that they're going to have to address.
But lads, come here, and we can talk about all the games, and there's no doubt about it. Like, there's a smile on people's faces going to games, and they're coming up to you now saying they're enjoying the game of Gaelic football, and there's no doubt about higher scoring, more pace, more fluidity to the game. But it would be remiss of me, and I think it's not to talk about the elephant in the room. And we talk about what Jim Gavin and the FRC have done, and Jim is very quick to note that it's not rule changes they've brought in, it's rule enhancements. And I actually went to the dictionary to find out what is a rule enhancement. And enhancement means improvement in quality. But there's one rule change, enhancement, that is not improving the quality of the game, that is doing nothing for the game of Gaelic football, and that is the 12 versus 11, the goalie being the extra man. And they did huge work. The FRC did huge work, huge research, going back over the data, huge research with players, with all the stakeholders, getting submissions from all the different people, thousands of submissions. Are you telling me that somebody came up and said, oh, lads, we need to change the rule. We need to have the goalies up the field as an extra man. There isn't a single person in this world that made a submission with that rule. It is a joke. It is wrong, wrong, wrong. Because the elephant in the room in Gaelic football over the last number of years was primarily the overuse of hand passing. And as long as you have an extra man, 12v11, you're still getting the same thing. Recycling, slow build up. Meath went down to 14 men against Down last week. They brought the goalkeeper up. They created a 12 versus 11. They kept possession for almost 4 minutes, and the goalkeeper, Harry Hogan, had the ball 10 times. That is not That is the old style football, and we need to get rid of. I don't even wait to the end of the league. Scrap it now. Yeah. Jesus, I'll tell you this. I'm 69 with a bad knee. I could nearly perform the role they're playing in. It's a free role. It's a show pony role where they're free. No one is touching them, and they have a couple of free shots to goal. It's wrong. It's doing nothing for the game.
Dick, that was the premise of your column in Monday's paper, so you might explain.
Pat's just stole on me line, so he has after my column yesterday.
Rant over.
Thanks, Pat.
I wrote it actually. I swear
he did actually. But Pat's my ghostwriter. Tell us, come here. But I 100% agree. And I remember a comment, and I think the next time one of the FRC or Jim Gavin's been interviewed, a very straight question needs to be asked. Was it foreseen in your new rules that the goalkeeper would become what they have become? Yes or no? I remember a comment. I can't remember where it was said in the lead up to the provincial trials that about the goalkeeper rule, and the comment was made that the allowance to allow him to come up was in the event that in the last minute the goalkeeper might need to progress and get a score, and it was to not completely limit him, and it was that sort of provision. That's why he was allowed to come up and engage in the plays. That when I heard that been said by one of the FRC members, it was a case of so there's no way there was the intention that it had happened to what the extent that it has done now, that they're coming up straight away. So I would think this is definitely, I wouldn't say an oversight, but a huge sense of an unintended consequence, and it is not good for the game, and it's going to get worse.
You're spot on, Dick, because you take, when the games get serious, when it goes to the business end of the year, and you take an All-Ireland final, and Dublin are 1 point up with 4 minutes to go, with the goalkeeper up 12 versus 11, game management, they can kill a game. We're going to get the same 3 and 4. Look, against Dublin last, they had kept possession for 3 and 4 minutes. Evan Comerford was up. Look, the bottom line is a housekeeper minds a house. A goalkeeper's primary role is to be a goalkeeper. And I look at youngsters who aspire to be a goalkeeper and wanted to be a goalkeeper at club, with county, and they practice all the skills of shot stopping, they're working their agility, they're working their kick-outs, they're working catching the high ball. And now they're being told, lads, we don't need you anymore. The game has changed. We don't need you. We're bringing in the midfielder. It's wrong.
The thing about it as well, lads, is though the keeper is already influential enough in the new rules.
Yes.
Like the kick out is so important now. It's never been more important. And I was looking at, say, even Rory Beggan and Conor Carroll the other day. With the new rules, there's more shots been taken. There's more goal chances. You actually need a good goalie. You need someone who can stop shots. Very, very simple. There were some goals scored at the weekend on what I would say non-traditional goalkeepers playing in the goals, outfield players playing in the goals, that would have been saved by Rory Beggan or would have been saved by Niall Morgan. And that's a fact. So I just think they're influential enough already without giving them all this licence to go up the pitch and whatever. It's changed the game completely.
But there's another thing I've started to notice, and if you look at the results, right, in Division 1 last week, Michael, how many goals scored? 2.
Okay. Yeah.
If you take the Kerry game, the Kerry-Derry free-for-all out, most of the games now, there's an average of less than 1 goal per game in all the Division 1 games. Okay, so what's happening, if you take the Mayo Tyrone game as an example, teams are starting to say, well, with this keeper coming up, we're going to get too exposed. If we come out and push up, we're going to leave too much space behind. So what's going to happen? They all sit in and protect the arc and then allow what you're saying. So that's already set in play, and that trend is going to continue, because if you push out, which is what you want, that was the intention of the FRC, that it'd be 11v11, they'd push out and you would then have space in behind. But teams are saying, not when there's a +1. I ain't pushing out, because that keeper's just going to come in over the top. There's going to be a +1. So they're dropping off, they're minding the house, less goal chances, less goal scores, more lateral play. So that's a worrying trend that has to be addressed.
Yeah. Just to put a bow on Kerry and Dublin, Pat, it's been an unbelievably sad couple of weeks in sport, between Michael Coleman's passing, Michael O'Sullivan's passing, the jockey, John Cooney's passing, and obviously you would have had loads of dealings with Paddy Cullen in your own playing days, and I know there was great relationship with the Kerry and Dublin players, hard hitting and no quarter asked or given on the pitch, but real good friendships and that forged off the pitch. Just a word on Paddy and maybe your memories of him both as a player and a manager.
Paddy, I will always say this, and I think it's well documented now, that Kerry and Dublin in the 70s, the emergence of Dublin first in 74, and then the re-emergence of Kerry in 75, saved Gaelic football. It made Gaelic football hot and sexy again. It drew huge crowds, great colour, great atmosphere, great matches. The two sets of players went hammer and tongs at one another. But the beauty of sport is once the game is over, the game is over. The strongest friendships and the best friends I've ever had down through the years into county were with the Dubs, because the Dubs were great competitors, great players, but great people, great personalities. And, you know, it's sad to think, and Paddy was one of the biggest characters of the North, an absolute gentleman who didn't mind if you were taking the piss out of him about Mikey Sheehy's goal or whatever like that. A great character. And, you know, like we worry about the new rules and the 12 versus 11 and blah, blah, whatever like that. You know, when you look at Michael O'Sullivan and young John Cooney, the boxer, and you say life sport is so irrelevant. Like when we were playing sport against Dublin in the 70s, you know, we thought we were invincible. We were the greatest athletes at the time around Ireland. And like when you think of the two teams, probably the greatest warriors and the biggest, strongest men in two teams, they're gone. We lost Paddy, John Egan and Tim Kennelly, three powerful strong men, warriors, taken long before that time. In Dublin, Anton O'Toole, Brian Mullins, Paddy Cullen. And it's gas in a way. Would you believe it or not, that in April, in 2 months' time, there's a big get-together down in Sheen Falls Hotel in Kenmare, organised by Mickey Ned O'Sullivan, of the 1975 Kerry and Dublin teams. Brilliant. We're celebrating the 50th anniversary of 1975 All-Ireland. So we'll be meeting up with them. Unfortunately, under sad circumstances, Paddy is gone and Tony Hanoa lost his wife last week as well. So, and he is a great man, an absolute warrior. What the Dubs, what that bunch of Dublin players did for the GA in Dublin. They were characters, they were larger than life. And you just say, like, and no different than Kerry, like, we don't use the players nowadays. The Dublin players, the Kerry players, the inter-county players that are there now are just as great players, are just as great personalities, are brilliant role models. And what do we do with the GA now, unlike in the 70s? We hide them away from everyone. We don't allow them to talk. They're not on billboards. They're not allowed to show us their personalities.
Yeah, it's disappointing because there's so much personality there. So that's obviously a very disappointing aspect. One of the biggest probably characters and personalities in the GA made his competitive return over the weekend, Dick. Great to see Michael Murphy back, and it wasn't a bad little cameo, was it?
Well, it's not great if you're from another county trying to compete with Donegal, because it's stronger. They're getting very impressive. Donegal are very impressive, as Armagh have been. That'll be a sore one for Ciarán McGeady, because I was impressed the way Armagh have kicked on. Sometimes you can get a bit of an All-Ireland hangover, especially a team that you might have thought they won that against the Head, so they did not expect to go up there and to get a sort of a beating that they did, and then the Aidan Forker instance, definitely a bit of a stain on. But in terms of Michael Murphy, one thing I noticed, geez, how fit he looked. Like,
he's a different shape, Dick, isn't he? He's a lot leaner, isn't he?
Lean.
Yeah.
You always tell by somebody's jawline and stuff like that. He looked very lean. So I'd say he's been put through a fairly tough pre-season in terms of diet-wise. He knows himself. Listen, he knows himself. Like, he's a big frame of a man. I say towards the latter of his career, he was probably topping out at 15 stone. That's a lot of weight to be calling, especially in the new game. He probably knows that to give himself a chance, he's got to strip back any sort of dead weight there. And he looked fit. He looked sharp. And now, whether he's going to be a 70 minutes man, he's going to be an impact sub. It's going to be a long, tough season. He's 35, going on 36. The body can only do so much, but he's back. He's going to contribute. He's an asset. It's good times to be a Donegal fan again.
Just Pat, just Pat. I don't know if you saw that picture going around. I think it was Ramsey Cardy from Sportsfile was definitely one of them that had it. But Murphy going up, absolutely like perfect timing. One hand in the air and the ball sticking in his one hand. Like, that's the stuff we're kind of crying out for, isn't it?
Sure. Michael Murphy is one of the greatest forwards of the modern era. A great forward, a great person, a great role model. And like, we should be we should be shouting from the rooftops, Michael Murphy is back, he's going to be playing. I think I read in the paper today that it was only 15 minutes before kickoff when it was revealed that he's going to be tagging off. I mean, we don't do communications and publicity in the G at all. But you think of a full forward, you think of a 3-man forward line of Patrick McBearty, Oisin Connaughty and Michael Murphy. They are the three ball winners. Really accurate. 3 of the best kickers from open play. Now there's only one there's only one slight provisor, and Donegal are absolutely brilliant. Like they're very fit at the moment. They're ferociously well organised, protecting that arc. They're the only county I know that mark the goalie. They're prepared to gamble and put pressure on the goalie kicking. They're brilliant in transition. If there is a drawback or a fault to them, in transition, they don't use the kick pass. Now, if you have 3 brilliant forwards up, I'd be, okay, maybe the weather conditions aren't conducive to it, but I'd be kicking the ball more from a Donegal point of view to get it into Michael Murphy, Connaughty and McBrearty. But look, at the moment, they're the favourites for the All-Ireland, but this is the most open All-Ireland I can remember for many years, and I could give 9 counties that could say, geez, on a good day, we could win an All-Ireland.
Just, you're after segueing into something, Pat. You touched on it earlier, and I'm going to have to bring it up now. But as an organisation, we're making an absolute Horlicks of advertising. You know, what's the team for this weekend? Why can't counties just put out an accurate team? Why is there this raft of changes? Half an hour. I got it when I went to the Hyde on Sunday. There was so many different changes. Mayo had that many changes that they had to put a graphic out with that many. Why can't we just be genuine and honest?
Worse than that, whatever with late changes, they're bad enough. I went down to the Kerry Donegal game. I was sitting up in the stand, I was looking at the programme with the young lads, and we're sort of saying, who's that? That's not... They actually hadn't the right jerseys on.
Yeah.
They had players, there was about half a dozen Donegal players were wearing the wrong numbers on the jerseys. Now, somebody explain that to me.
I'll explain it to you.
Programs. I'm going back and getting the favour back for a programme that's not worth a bean of hills.
I'll explain it to you, Dick, and it's a poor explanation and it's a poor excuse. Obviously, the Kerry Donegal game was cancelled for round 1 because of the weather. But what did they do for round 2, which was for round 1, the replay 2 weeks time? They used the same programme from round 1, despite the fact that the teams had changed, the players had changed. You think now they'd have said, right, in the interest of communication and PR, we'd at least put an A4 sheet of the new team, the new numbers, but they didn't. They didn't even change the numbers on the jerseys. Now, they did drop the price to €3, but it was a joke. But you're right, the changes in Mayo and Tyrone, I'm like, county teams being announced 10 minutes before throw up. We don't do communication. We don't do publicity. And is it any wonder that last year, 500,000 people, there was a drop in 500,000 people watching National Hurling and Football League? We don't publicise. There was no launch to this year's Alliance Football League. There was no big launch. There's no big publicity surrounding any of the games. There's no promotion. The Bows did a promotion and attracted 32,000 to the Aviva for a record crowd last night. We don't do promotion. We don't do communications. We had the All-Ireland Club finals with, say, the senior football club final. The Canavans against Michael Fitzsimon and Conor Cullen. Box office. And the Pierce or Sarsfields of Cork against who are they playing? Nafina. And for the press builder, they send out guys who weren't even starting in the first 15. We don't do games promotion. We don't do marketing. And like when you talk about communications, like it's obviously we don't do communications from the G and from the top down either, because as Peter Canavan revealed last Saturday night, the county players and managers, very few were informed that, hey lads, there's a new 20-second rule for the kick out. So communications is a big issue. But look, bottom line, we have a great product in hurling. We hopefully will have a great product for football. But let's tell people about them. Let's tell people about the great players. Let's tell people about the great games. We're not telling anyone. Jesus.
Yeah. No, I know we're segueing a wee bit, but just on that point, and maybe it's for another day's conversation. Like last week, there was a lot of talk about GA finances, and the GPA got a bit of criticism coming out. I would be putting it back to me that this is one area that the GPA have been completely asleep at the wheel. And if they're going to have any relevance or can add any value to the association, you should be putting them, guys, you have to come up with a plan that increases the exposure and the market of the players that you're been expected to represent, because you're not doing that job well. They should be leading the charge on that, and they should be coming up with ways to promote their players. You can't be turning around in one hand looking for more money and expenses, and then in the other hand not getting the players that you're supposed to be representing doing what needs to be. Like, you take an example with David Clifford. I remember last year, Pat, I don't know if you got up to it, when Monaghan played Kerry in Clonus. Word came out earlier in the week that David Clifford was going to be tugged out. I'd say there was at least 3,000 more people. I'd never seen a crowd like it in Clonus for a league game. There's about half a dozen marquee players in the game that will do that. They move the dial. You've got David Clifford, you've got Conor Callaghan, you've got the two Canavans, you've got Shane Walsh, possibly Rian O'Neill. The people will literally decide whether they're going to go to a game. Like, simple things. So if you want to talk about money, there's the cause and effect. So anyway, I know we segue a wee bit, but I fully agree with Pat. But bodies like the GPA need to step up in that regard.
I just think as well, lads, I think as an organisation, we just expect people to keep showing up. You can't keep treating people so badly and expect them to keep showing up.
But you're right, Michael. We need to give them, I wrote about it last week, because tonight, okay, the Super Bowl in America, okay, that's an extravaganza over the top completely. But you take an All-Ireland. Can we not have an All-Ireland final weekend or week in the same way as a week of celebration for Gaelic games, a week of profiling Gaelic games, a week of profiling our players? What is an All-Ireland final day experience? An All-Ireland final day experience is €100 for a ticket, quite expensive, overinflated prices for food and drink. You might get some traditional music crowd playing and a couple of fellas being interviewed on the sideline. That is the All-Ireland final experience. It's non-existent. And you take National Football League games. You go in the 40, 50 years that I've been going to National Football League games, there's no experience. It has never changed. You go, you sit in the same primitive conditions. You might be lucky to get an overpriced cup of tea or coffee, or there might be a burger van. There's no attraction. There's no match day experience. There's nothing to say, come. There's something good here. We're not doing it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. We need to look at we have a brilliant product. Just highlight it, advertise it, market it, and people will come. But you need to treat people when they enter the gates and you've like, here's something and I'll leave it on this. If you pay £100 to watch an All-Ireland final and a big incident happens in the game that's controversial, you don't get to see it on the big screen. Oh my God above. You're actually telling people, no, stay at home because you will see it at home. Makes no sense. But that's enough on that, lads, because we could talk about that all day.
What are you at tomorrow, Pat?
just on Galway, Dick, definitely mix the brilliant and the below average in that game against Derry.
Yeah, I think they left that behind them. The game one, not dissimilar to Kerry and Tralee. I think not to labour the point on the keeper. Like, it was that first 50 minutes of the second half on Saturday night in that game. That was a look ahead to how potentially bad the new game could be. Galway just completely took the foot off the gas. Conor Gleeson come up, who's not an outfield keeper. Whenever we bring in an outfield keeper up to contribute, he isn't that. And he slowed up the play. He took bad shots. I'm not being hard on Conor Gleeson because there's other examples of that, but it just sucked the life and the momentum out of Galway, and it gave Derry an opportunity to get back into the game. And then, as Pat said, the momentum shifted. They got a few scores, a few players that had been peripheral got into the game. Lachlan Murray came in and just went for it, and next thing Galway were sitting back on their heels and should have lost the game, really, because actually the free that Lachlan Murray got done for, and next thing it was brought up to the edge of the D, and Shane Walsh got a 2-pointer, and that was ridiculous. Like, that rule really bugs me, that something like that could happen, relatively innocuous, that could turn into a 2-point score for a team. That has to be eradicated. Like, a ball's coming up, the max you can get is a point. Like, that what he done didn't deserve and that decided the game. But anyway, I thought Galway, like, they're in good shape, but they need to realise what makes them good. Okay, and they've got really good players, they've got good forwards. They don't need Conor Gleeson coming up, slowing up the play. Let their good ball players own the ball, and they'll do damage. So they'll learn from that. They're in good shape. They look sharp. They look hungry. They probably realise there's only a a year or two left for an All-Ireland in that team, well, we'll still have sort of the hunger for it. So they learn from that. So it's they got out of jail a wee bit in terms of they didn't lose the game, but it wasn't a good second half.
Actually, while we are cranky and on a rant, that game for a start, right, finished in a draw. Yet Lachlan Murray kicked the ball, which was most definitely wide, and it was given as a point.
Wide,
Not good enough. That's number one. The second thing is back to the new rules again. The anomaly that was shown up in the Mayo Tyrone game, where a team should be punished for receiving a black card or a red card. It is wrong in the scenario now that you can allow that when you're attacking, you can leave two defenders back. When you're defending, you can leave two attackers up. That is wrong. That is not punishment for a black card. And by the way, and while we're positive about the new rules and about the improvements and the enhancements, if anyone watched the Mayo Tyrone game and someone said, lads, they're playing under the old rules, you'd have said, fuck it, I knew it, they were playing under the old rules. I forgot to tell them. Because so under these new rules, with these enhancements, a game can just be as bad, as turgid and as putrid as it was in the past. And Mayo and Tyrone produced an absolutely putrid, conservative, turgid game of football last week. Under the new rules, the enhancements.
Yeah, it was not good to watch at all. Just from a Mayo point of view, Pat, worryingly enough, like I think there was just over 6,000 in McHale Park, which is like that's minuscule.
It is half what attended the last league game between Tyrone and Mayo. 12,000 plus attended the last game. 6,000. That's a worry. Now I can see that with Mayo. You know, I have held that Mayo for Sam banner all over the world. I have stood everywhere, outside the Sydney Opera House, outside Gaelic Park in New York, holding that Mayo for Sam. And you know, when that person comes up to you, and you know the first question they ask you, will Mayo win the All-Ireland? And there's a look in their eyes, a sadness in their eyes, and they're sort of saying, please, please, please tell me they will. It's the first ever time that I noticed there's not that enthusiasm for the supporters. And when the supporters lose faith, geez, it's difficult. But one thing, look, last week, they were humiliated and bullied by Galway in round two. They were good last week. I wouldn't say they were good, but they laid down a marker. The spirit was there, the work rate was there, the attitude was there. And like Aidan O'Shea, say what you like about him, but he's that fucking charismatic. He has that leadership qualities and he does make a difference. So look, it was a good win in a bad match and they needed to win, but at least they showed that they're playing for the manager and the management.
I genuinely believe Aidan O'Shea will only be really appreciated when he's gone. Because, fair enough, the All-Ireland finals, and he hasn't scored in an All-Ireland final, and he hasn't been at his best in All-Ireland finals. But geez, lads, outside of that, he's had some, particularly last 3, 4, 5 years, he's been unbelievably consistent. Dick, just from a Tyrone point of view, Malachy O'Rourke, we kind of waxed lyrical about them after the first day and their squad depth and that. He's definitely playing a bit of a long game with the Canavans and Peter Hart now, and maybe not rushing them back and not trying to really push for results here. I probably got a bit of a view to the summer and maybe some of his key men being really fresh, and they've shipped a couple of results probably as on the back of that.
As I remember with Monaghan, we'll focus on keeping them very tight at the back. He'll need to build a shape and a structure there and get the right bodies in there to keep them to that. He knows he's got the talent of the Canavans to come back in and put a bit of a sprinkling up front. Okay, so he knows what he's going to get with those. He can't guarantee what he has at the back. So he's obviously working on that, keeping the shape in place, keeping them competitive. And then when the boys come back in, they should have enough firepower. Like his young Mark Bradley, Darren McCurry's, the two boys, there's enough scores, especially in this new game. He's got a good competitive midfield. I think he knows himself in terms of the long game that if he can get his best 15 out, they'll not be far away, but they're not going to be competing if they don't have a good solid defence. So you can see him starting to work on that and keeping it tight. So yeah, as you said, they'll not be pretty to watch if you have another team that'll play similar to them. But listen, I'm expecting more from them. As you said, the next game or the first game, the Canavans are on the team sheet. As Pat says, let us know. We'll all turn up and watch them. I drove to Newbridge a couple of months ago because I wanted to go and watch them, and I'm glad I did. It was one of the best exhibitions of football. He has that, and he'd be looking forward to getting them back in. But he's not going to rush them back. They're a tough league, a tough All-Ireland club final, and he'd want them for June and July, not necessarily February and March.
Pat, just something we didn't touch on, and we have to touch on it a bit at least. I would have liked to have seen or heard your commentary around Aidan Farker and Michael Murphy. I remember you did something similar in the '96 All-Ireland football final and went through a blow-by-blow account. Describe to me what you saw there. It was a bit mad.
That's what. Look, it was. Look, I know I've met Aidan a few times. Good lad, good solid lad. And Aidan will be the first to put the hands up and he will say, I was wrong. And he will have been embarrassed by his behaviour. And he deservedly got sent off. But look, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. You know, he made a mistake. He got punished for it. And look, he's 30-something years of age. He'll learn from it. But it was embarrassing.
Yeah, it was good to see that there was Murphy would never do it anyway, but there was no theatrics needed, or no one needed to fall to the ground. The referee saw what happened, and he was duly sent off for it. Dick, could just quickly touch on Division 2. Monaghan put up another good score. They'd been averaging, mid-20s before last Sunday. They hit 214, but they were hit for 25 points by Roscommon. And I know, even chatting to you just briefly before the show, there's a lot of young guns kind of getting their debuts and getting a good show in the league. Roscommon probably something similar too. Two sides going through maybe a bit of change at the minute, but from a Monaghan point of view, where are they at the minute?
Listen, there's a huge transition there. Like O'Connor go, there's still a few hands. Darren came in towards the end, Carl O'Connor, but there's a lot of new lads getting blooded, and we all know you never know what you're going to get. Are they going to be up to the pace of the game? Will they hang around? So there's boys there I don't even know them personally, so they're 20 years younger than me. So you're just sitting watching. Have they got the pace? Have they got the hunger? Have they got the ability? Some of them have, some of them a bit of work to do, but they're competing well. So we're a bit unsure, a bit apprehensive this year, but to be quite happy with where I didn't think going down to Roscommon, the result down there was going to be tough. That's a good Roscommon team. Like, they're not going to be far away. Like Pat mentioned, 9 teams. I'd be putting them in that 9. They've got forwards, and they've got, Enda Smith wasn't playing. There are a few big men around the middle, good keeper. Daly's at the back. They're all right. They'll fancy their chance that they could sort of plot a path to an All-Ireland semi-final, or if the cards fell for them and got the right team to an All-Ireland final. So that was a good performance against a good team from Monaghan. But Roscommon and Monaghan rightly at the top of that table. Elsewhere, there's with Cork, you're going to get the good and the bad with Cork. Put up a big performance. The next day they could have an away game that they don't show up, but there's good positive indicators for the likes of Meath and Cork, who are getting their act together.
Just on Meath, Pat, we'll just touch briefly on them again. Most of the highest scoring teams in the country are coming from Division 2, namely Monaghan, Roscommon and Meath, and Cork are right up there as well. Meath have impressed so far, to be fair. That was it, and that was a good result up and down the other night.
It was indeed, and they're playing a nice brand of football under Robbie Brennan. They've brought some of the old boys back, some good youngsters. I watched some of their players in the Sigerson Cup, very impressive players, and they were playing well last week. That lad, the captain of DCU during the week, his name for I forget his name again. He was the captain. They have good players. They've nice. Robbie Brennan is a shrewd operator. He's successful at manager at club level. And like I said, going back to, if someone told me with Conor McManus retired, by the way, after 3 rounds, Monaghan will be the highest scoring team in the country. It's weird and wacky, but we've had some really high scoring. Dick referred to the lack of goals and the lack of, the lowest enough scoring in the first. In the first division. I mean, how many goals? 5, 8, 11, 12 goals in Division 2, and high scoring games, really exciting football. Roscommon are the team. I love Roscommon. And I was watching them last week, and you know what? They're the first team that are really moving the ball. Outside of the fact that they have some of the best kickers in the game, the Murtas and the Smiths. They have really good kickers.
Real good,
Darrell Craig. And last week, they were moving the ball quickly. Once the goalkeeper, the opposing goalie, was out, they were moving the ball quickly, trying to exploit the goalie being out. Lovely football team. And you're right, they're in my 9. There's no doubt about they're in my 9.
And if ever there was a year that there would be someone out of the ordinary would come and win it, maybe this is the year when people are adapting. And I just think, and I know from chatting Davy Burke up and down, I think he's really enjoying the new rules, enjoying coaching differently, shall we say, through the new rules as well. Just throw one last one at you, Pat, before we finish up, and it's to do with my own county, and I'll be straight with you. I'm very surprised that Offaly are 3 from 3 at this stage in Division 3. I wasn't expecting it. I thought they'd be under pressure, thought to be down the lower end of the table. But like, this is not maybe your typical Mickey Hart style team at the minute. The scores they're putting up are incredible, really. 4-19 at the weekend. Mickey seems to be doing it again, Pat.
Well, Mickey has always got a bounce out of a first year anyway. Whether it is with Tyrone, whether it is with Louth, and whether it is with Derry last year in the league, because goddamn well, the minute Mickey comes in, these will be well prepared. He'll have them really fit. He'll have them flying fit. He'll have them well organised, playing to the system, and bringing a high profile manager for Mickey, like Mickey, in will bring confidence to the players, and the players are playing with confidence. Now, I saw a lot of that game against Sligo in the first round, and in the first half, playing with the wind, Sligo were beating them. Just there was a transformation in the second half, and some of it is confidence. Last year, most of these boys were involved in an Offaly team that got beaten by London in the Talton Cup. So the footballers have always been there in Offaly. We know that there's good young fellas coming through, but give them belief and confidence, and that's what Mickey does to the team. He gives them belief and he gives them confidence, and they're playing with that swagger. And now I think is it this weekend, like the big test. The litmus test is Kildare, because Kildare are the best team by a country mile in this division. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, and they put up a massive score against Leitrim at the weekend, like a remarkable score. I think it was 1-12 to no score even at one stage. So there's obviously a big gulf in class between teams at the top of Division 3 and even teams at the bottom end. But lads, my huge thanks to the two to Dick Clerkin and Pat Spillane for joining us on Indo GA. We'll be back again next week to discuss all the action, and we'll chat to you then.
Pleasure.